turn to the phone lines here at top of hour number 3 here, the day after that Tom Brady announces his retirement after 22 years in the league. The Tampa Bay Times columnist and reporter who's been covering the Bucs forever and a day, Rick Stroud, is back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Rick?
Hey, Rich. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So walk me through the retirement announcement process with all of that happened with Brady. Best you can tell the timeline of that portion of this.
Well, it was crazy because, and he doesn't get enough credit, but really Jason La Canfora, last Friday night, sort of broke the news that Brady's retirement was imminent, that it would happen, sometime after the championship game. And then some 20 hours went by. I mean, we were contacting the Bucs, and they were like, no, haven't heard from them. Don't know what's going on there. Don't know if I put much credence in that. And then, like I said, the next afternoon, late afternoon, as I've said before, Rich, when you hear Adam Schefter come on, ESPN and go, according to my sources, Tom Brady.
Well, very good.
At that point, okay, all right. Now, then who has better sources, right, with Tom Brady than him and Jeff Darlington? And then there was this, sort of when I was talking to Bruce, when I was talking to Jason, I mean, they felt not that it couldn't happen, but just that again, they were hurt, I think, about the fact that all this was coming out before they had talked to Tom about it. And, so I don't know. I think they probably thought it was inevitable, but it wasn't until, and then Tom goes on, Monday night on the Let's Go podcast with Jim Gray. I don't know what that was, him saying that he still was, trying undecided and, would make an announcement when he had decided. And then, 9:30 in the morning, 9:37, whatever it was, you have this very lengthy, 5 or 6 part statement that clearly he didn't craft that morning. So it was a very clumsily, un-Brady-like sort of rollout of his retirement. I think the Bucs were sort of, prepared for it in a sense, but I think, he didn't really call Jason Light until really Monday night, I guess, after the Jim Gray podcast, and told him that this was coming on Tuesday morning. So it's just, just a weird deal. And I have my suspicions. I mean, I suspect that, we haven't seen the last episode of Man in the Arena as the man leaves the arena. ESPN Plus has part of that. And at some point, I expect to see him sit down and say, hey, Daddy has a new team and I'm staying with you guys, and we'll see how that all plays off in the cinema. But it just, it was just a weird weekend for sure, because you got to watch his career funeral before he actually said he was done.
Yeah, it was. And then, Jason Light and the Bucs said that Brady called him up and said, I haven't decided anything yet. But, then you hear from some that there were indications this was it weeks before. So what was the general sense of things around the team? Did you get any sense that Brady was thinking of retiring as he was playing out the rest of this season, Rick?
No, you really didn't get that sense. I mean, he's so focused on the day, on the task at hand. I'll say this about Tom, and I didn't get to really, because of the pandemic, we didn't get to spend a lot of the time you would have in the locker room normally and get to know him personally. I obviously met him at the Hall of Fame, really. We did Zooms the whole first year, and then, met him at the Hall of Fame when Peyton Manning went in, had the only one-on-one, I think, locally before the start of the season. But he's very present. He's very present when he's talking to you, and he stays that way throughout the season. But I got to believe, Rich, just like he said, they asked him when he came to Tampa, when did you know it was over in New England? And he said, well, when I knew I didn't have a contract for the next year, I went into the season thinking that this was my last year there. I was pretty sure of it. And I think he probably felt that way. He signed a 2-year contract. They extended it for cap reasons, the possibility of him wanting to play until he was 45. And he even told me in September when he got up from that interview, he goes, I hope we can do this again. I plan to be here many years. And I thought, well, that's good because he'll be back, next season if that's what he's saying. But, I just think that he, the idea of having won a Super Bowl already, look, he goes out on top. He's the league's leading passer with over 5,316 yards, 43 touchdowns. I mean, if not for some really bad defense at the end of the Rams game, maybe they're playing next weekend. in the Super Bowl again. So it was just time. He had talked about the pull from his family all during the year. You know, it wasn't just Jim Gray's podcast. He had told us similar things, you know, about where he was in life and where his kids were in life. So I think it's something that he probably had worked out in his mind, if not him and his wife worked out. And we were all just kind of like thinking, well, maybe this can go on. But in reality, too many business things too, Rich. You see everything he does in the expanded business portfolio. That's going to demand his time as well. So disappointing, but not surprising.
Rick Stroud, Tampa Bay Times here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's turn the page then, and starting with who's at quarterback. Is this going to be Kyle Trask's job to win? Who would they be bringing in? Are they going to is it going to be Trask versus Gabbert? They're going to draft? Walk me through what they're thinking now that it's official. Brady's not coming through the door to play.
I mean, Rich, they're thinking, is Andrew Luck got any chance of coming out of retirement? I mean, really, it's, you know, I mean, they will exhaust everything. You know, door number 2 is where Tom Brady walked through one time. Now, there is no Tom Brady out there for them, unfortunately. And I think it's unrealistic to think that, you know, if Aaron Rodgers left Green Bay, that the Packers would trade him to Tampa. They didn't trade Brett Favre here. They traded him to the Jets instead. You know, same is probably true with Russell Wilson if, in fact, he were to leave. You know, do you go to the Texans, and how many draft picks would you have to package and then hope that Deshaun Watson isn't going to get suspended? You know, Jimmy Garoppolo is an agreement with the 49ers. You know, do you think he's salvageable? You know, he's a winner, but he's been hurt. He says he wants to go to a winning team. I mean, there's only we all know the names, right? We all know the prospects, and there's so many teams, even in this division, except for maybe Atlanta, but maybe also Atlanta, looking for quarterbacks. And any team that were to trade you one would then be in that same market. So it's difficult. You know, when they went through this before and they didn't know if they could get Tom, Clyde Christensen sat down, and at that time there were quarterbacks like Phillip Rivers was out there, and of course he played 1 year at the Colts. Teddy Bridgewater was the guy they were going to turn to next. He wound up going to Carolina because they got Brady, and then we saw him in Denver. You just don't know, like, what tier of quarterback are you able to pry out of another team. But I think they'll look for a veteran. I think, you know, they don't probably believe that Trask is quite ready. They might like him more than some of the guys in the draft this year. But he had a redshirt season, you know, and he didn't play at all. He was inactive every single game. Excuse me. And, you know, I just think they don't know what they have there. They do know they have a pretty veteran team. They can retain some free agents. The South is wide open again. So, yeah, it's really wide open. And I mean that. They will look everywhere to try to find the best option.
Well, and the question is that if the option does come down to just deciding, you know what, we I guess thinking within the building is it's Trask's gig. Is that something Arians wants to do? Like, what's the scoop with Bruce's future there, do you think?
Yeah, you know, I've talked to Bruce a bunch, and I didn't know if it was rhetoric because he didn't know Tom's fate or not. You know, right now he's trying to rest at home. This Achilles thing was a nightmare for him at the end of the year. He's trying to avoid surgery because that's a whole nother rehab situation. He might need it. But he told me, you know, with or without Brady, he was going to come back and coach. And, you know, he'll be 70 in October. You know, he gutted through the year, quite frankly, like his team playing hurt all season. But it looks like, Rich, he's going to get back Byron Leftwich. It looks like he's going to get back Todd Bowles. That makes life a lot easier for Bruce Arians. It really does. And, you know, they've got a good football team. They need a quarterback like so many other teams. But, you know, 7 of their 9 Pro Bowlers are still under contract. And they'll get some more of these free agents to come back, especially if Bowles and or Leftwich are here. They'll probably franchise Chris Godwin if they can't reach an agreement with him. So it's still a pretty good team, you know, like I said, but for a few plays on defense. And the injuries, you know, with Tristan Wirfs really wiped them out. They got to get some offensive linemen. You know, Ryan Jensen and Alex Kappa are free agents, but they may get one of those guys back. So all is not dark and gloomy. It'll never be as bright and shiny as it was with Brady. But they feel like they have a pretty good football team, and I think Bruce knows that, and I think he wants to coach again, and I think he will.
Rick Stroud here on the Rich Eisen Show, and just moments ago in discussing Bruce Arians' future. You're gonna again, your guess is, and hearing from him, he's staying there. And the helpful piece of that would be to have you said it looks like he's going to have Bowles and Byron Leftwich back. Why? Walk me through what's
because teams aren't smart enough to hire them. Because Brian Flores is right. I can't explain it any other way. I mean, Jacksonville is dysfunctional at best, no matter who they hire, right? I mean, and I suspect Trent Baalke is somebody that a lot of coaches probably don't want to work for or with. Byron has gone in there now twice. It's too easy, right? You got a guy who has a history with the Jaguars and was an NFL. How many NFL quarterbacks that really played at that level, high draft picks, calling plays, sat around with Tom Brady for a couple years, won a Super Bowl, 42 years old, and you've got Trevor Lawrence sitting there. You don't want this guy to work with him, really? You don't think he's going to be a good head coach? I don't know who would be better. They have a lot of names. They're talking to everybody, but they haven't pulled the trigger on anything. So I know Byron is a candidate with New Orleans, which is interesting. And I don't know where they're going to go. But, Todd Bowles was in it in Minnesota. He was in it with the Raiders. Those two programs look like they're going another way. So, both those guys deserve to be head coaches. For Bowles, again, for Byron the first time. I don't know what this league is thinking, with just Mike Tomlin right now, who had to win 15 straight years to keep his gig. It's a shame. And, there's 3 African-American coordinators here. This organization, I will say, has had 3 black head coaches, and probably the next one will be as well. I don't understand why there's not diversity in this league in coaching. It's frustrating. But it'll be to the Bucs' benefit if those 2 guys are back.
And the thing about Leftwich too is he's Bruce Arians' hand-picked coach for play calling. He was the one who took Leftwich essentially from home after he retired and basically said, "I think you can do this." And I've spoken to Leftwich about this and what Arians saw in him and what he's proven. And your point is perfectly well taken. That I guess he doesn't want to work with Trent Baalke. That he's still there, right? I mean, everything else checks every box. It makes zero sense.
And to be fair, I have not talked to Byron about Baalke. That's speculation on my part. But I do know that the last 3 teams Baalke has worked for, and 2 of the coaches he hired were one and done. Okay, I think here's what I think about Byron and Bowles too. These guys are smart guys. Byron told me, he said, "Rick, I've been a quarterback in this league. I've made plenty of money. I'm not one of these coaches that say I got to be a head coach by the time I'm this age or that age." He just enjoys, helping guys play. You're right. He had to be talked into coaching.
Yeah.
He was on the golf course for 5 years, and he got the bug. And Arians knew how he saw the game. He sees the whole game. Some coaches, it's the run game. Some coaches, it's the passing game. Some of them don't understand the complementary, with the defense or special teams. Byron sees the whole picture, and he's watched the game from under center. I mean, that's a rare perspective. There's a lot of great, play callers on that sideline. Never stood behind the center. Never looked down the barrel at a guy, in a zero blitz. But Byron has, and now. And this is even bigger, as much as Byron thought he knew, he has a whole hell of a lot better perspective on playing the position with 2 years of working with Tom Brady, who took this offense and fit it to his own skill set and did it a different way, sees the game a different way. And so he's benefited from that. I don't know why people won't hire him. He's a great people person. He does not make excuses. I've been around long enough to know he's going to be successful when he gets his shot if it's with the right team. But I think these guys are smart. I think they realize it takes more, than just a quarterback prospect and, the rah-rah speech at the press conference to win in this league. And the longer it goes, these other staffs are going to be filled out. That's the other thing. This football team here in Tampa won because Bruce Arians could get together a hell of a coaching staff. if you're not hired a head coach yet, guess what? All those other staffs are starting to scatter and be sucked up by these guys that have been hired, and it's going to put you behind the 8 ball.
Last one for you then, Rick, is what's your reporting on the other aspect of the Brian Flores lawsuit about the accusation of tanking that Stephen Ross offered $100,000 for every loss of the 2019 season that obviously he didn't lose enough for. What's your reporting on that, if you have any?
I don't have any reporting. I will tell you, if you ask me, it's kind of like a few good men. If you ask me if Code Reds go on around here, on the record, I tell you no. Off the record, I tell you it's a valuable tool. There have been teams, and I've covered one, and I'm not really pointing fingers because I don't think it was the owners necessarily. But, I mean, I would say this. Go back and watch the last game of the season before Jameis Winston comes out and plays, and is drafted number 1 overall by the Bucs. The Bucs were going to either be number 1 or number 2 in the draft. They were playing New Orleans. Drew Brees is down 10 points. They couldn't even do that right. They're going to beat the New Orleans Saints in the final game of the season. They're going to get the number 2 pick, and Tennessee's going to have number 1. And all of a sudden, the bench is empty, and the starters come out, and Aaron Rodgers gets hot, and there's man coverage everywhere, and guess what? The Bucs lost the game. And after the game, we asked, well, why wasn't Mike Evans in? We'd be remiss without seeing these young guys before the season was over.
No, I know we've heard that before, like what last game of the season stuff.
Yeah, this is something I've never heard. I mean, If this is true, if any of this is true, Rich, it talks about it's the integrity of the game. I mean, what are we watching? WWE? I mean, like all of a sudden, you don't know which team is trying to win and which one is trying to lose, and then you have financial incentives. I've never heard of something like this, and apparently, if it's been going on, they got a bigger problem than not hiring enough coaches in this league, that aren't white and giving minorities an opportunity, an equal opportunity. But that to me is, beyond something that they want to deal with right now. But boy, it's out there.
I guess I lied. I have one last one for you, Rick Stroud. Interpret for me in Brady's farewell statement when he mentioned Bruce Arians and he mentioned driving Bruce Arians crazy. What you want to interpret that one? Saying that he's not going to drive Arians crazy anymore. What's that about?
I mean, they did get Antonio Brown in here, right? That was pretty crazy, and I know Bruce didn't want any part of him. Look, Tom was very demanding. Tom is very demanding. He got pretty much everything he asked for, but he asked for a lot, and so I think whether it's changing the offense, changing the personnel, I want this guy on the field. I don't want that guy on the field. I mean, that's sort of who Tom was, and that's why he's the greatest winner of all time. But he's not an easy guy, especially in his late years when he had that power. And I think Bruce had to do a lot of bending, and he did. And I think he appreciated that, and I think he appreciated that the Glazers gave him what he needed, and it was another way of doing things. And Bruce was able to accommodate him, and I think that's what that was all about. I think it's just, the patience and some of the personnel moves that they had to make that maybe Bruce wouldn't have made, especially with guys like Antonio that he was talking about.
One last thing for you, Rick, as I let you go, suggesting a story for you, or somebody can look into this however you want to look at it. When Evans grabbed that ball out of the air in the playoffs and that touchdown, the final touchdown pass of Brady's career over Jalen Ramsey, he took the football and he threw it in the stands. Did you see that?
I did, and I didn't know if anybody got that one back. I know number 600 was worth a few things.
Yeah. Where is that football? Where's the ball? Where is that ball, Rick? That's the one I want to know about right now.
I'm staring at it right now.
Retirement, Rick.
Rick Stroud.
I'd like to announce my retirement.
Yeah, you're not going to drive Arians crazy anymore, all of that stuff, right? There's a statement.
No, and they're not going to. Thankfully, they won't drive me crazy. I don't know, but I'm waiting for that text message that goes, "Have I got a story for you?"
That's right. No doubt. Rick, thanks for the time. We'll chat as the season moves along here. Thanks for the call, as always.
Thanks, man.
You bet. That's Rick Stroud right here That was funny. I'm looking at
Man,
it
if
right
Rick has
now.
that ball, that would be amazing.
Where is that
Talk
football?
about Rick Schefter imitation.
That wasn't bad. Rick Caliendo.
Pretty good.
That was really good.
Am I supposed to
Frank
say-
Stroud. That was good.
That was good.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.